Nepal has always been a land of patience. Too patient, some would say. For decades, people learned to adjust to broken systems, empty promises, slow justice, and fading hope. Children grew up believing education was the key, but somewhere along the way, the dream started cracking. Degrees no longer guaranteed dignity, and honesty often felt like a disadvantage. A quiet frustration settled into everyday life. People complained in tea shops, on buses, and behind closed doors, but rarely in the open. Silence became normal, not because people agreed, but because they were tired. Tired of hoping, tired of being disappointed, tired of seeing the same faces, the same speeches, the same results. Then came a generation that grew up watching all of this. They saw their parents struggle. They saw talented friends leave the country. This generation wasn't born angry, they were born observant. They questioned things earlier, they searched for answers online. They compared Nepal not to the past, but to what was possible. And slowly, something changed inside them. At first, Gen Z was misunderstood, called careless, addicted to phones, too idealistic, too loud on social media, and too quiet in real life. But what many didn't see was that behind the screens were young minds absorbing everything: politics, history, injustice, and global change. Awareness doesn't arrive suddenly. It builds. One unfair incident, one broken promise, one ignored voice at a time. For Gen Z, awareness came with a realization: silence is also participation. Staying quiet didn't protect the future, it delayed it. And so, slowly, carefully, they began to speak. The streets didn't fill with anger first. They filled with questions. Why does corruption repeat without consequences? Why does leadership feel distant from the people? Why does talent leave Nepal to survive? These weren't attacks, they were demands for clarity. Gen Z didn't claim to have all the answers. What they asked for was honesty. Accountability. A system that listens. Many older generations felt uncomfortable, not because the questions were wrong, but because they were unfamiliar. For years, people had learned to adjust instead of challenge. Gen Z didn't grow up with that habit. They respected the country, but they didn't worship broken systems. They loved Nepal, but they refused to pretend everything was fine. And that distinction matters, because awareness is not hatred. Questioning is not betrayal. Wanting better does not mean rejecting the nation. It means believing it deserves more. Gen Z's voice wasn't about destroying the past. It was about protecting the future. There were moments of doubt. Some youths were scared, some were discouraged. Some were told they were being manipulated or unrealistic. But awareness, once awakened, doesn't easily return to sleep. They understood that change is slow, uncomfortable, and often lonely. Still, they showed up, not as heroes, but as citizens. This movement wasn't led by one person or one party. It was led by a mindset, a belief that leadership should be accountable, that power should serve, not rule, that patriotism includes responsibility. And when young people saw even small examples of honest effort, it reinforced something powerful. Change is possible. To remember the hopes they once had. To understand that today's youth are not enemies of tradition, but carriers of its unfinished dreams. Nepal doesn't need division between generations, it needs dialogue. The protests, the discussions, the debates, none of them were perfect. But perfection was never the goal, awareness was. The courage to speak without fear. The discipline to demand better without hatred. The patience to build, not burn. Nepal today stands at a quiet crossroads. Not between chaos and order, but between sleep and awareness. One path continues the cycle of silence. The other asks uncomfortable questions and accepts responsibility for the answers. Gen Z has already chosen. They may not have power yet. They may not control systems yet. But they have something equally important: clarity. They know the future they don't want. And that's where change always begins. This is not the end of the story. Awareness must turn into consistency. Questions must turn into action. Hope must turn into responsibility. And Gen Z cannot do it alone. Nepal doesn't need saviors. It needs awakened citizens, young and old, who believe that silence is no longer enough. And awareness is the first step toward the country we all want to leave behind for the next generation.